Google is cutting thousands of jobs. Have you heard about this?
So is this different than the 20,000 jobs that have already been like evaporated?
Yes, it is. The thing is that Google is cutting thousands of jobs in its voice assistant, its hardware teams. And the other thing that's happening too is that its Fitbit founders are leaving.
Oh,
Google
okay.
acquired Fitbit not that
Yeah,
long
yeah, yeah.
ago. Yeah, yeah. So the thing is, um, the affected teams here are going to be within its Pixel, Nest, and Fitbit hardware teams. So
That's interesting because I do know the Pixel's doing pretty well. So I'm curious why. Maybe this maybe like bloat. They have too many people. I don't know.
yeah, the thing is, I know like a company like Google, like you mentioned, it already had a lot of employees, and
Yeah.
then they cut like those 20,000 employees. Like,
Yeah. I'm just like, how many more people could they get rid of?
yeah. So the thing is, the company at the time had 182,000 employees.
That seems
As
like a lot.
yeah, as of September 30th, 2023, and it did confirm that these employees were going to get cut, but it also downplayed it in a statement. Yeah. And they were just saying that it's part of a larger organizational change. Yeah. The thing is that this is part of a worrying trend that has been happening and continues to happen over the last few years. Like we've talked about on this channel, there's been a bunch of layoffs that have been happening recently. Google is laying off 1,000 people, like I mentioned. Again, a little bit more context. It's also going to be within ads, search assistant, maps, Androids, and like some of its other core products. Amazon is also laying off 1,000 people in Prime Video, MGM Studio, Twitch. Twitch itself is laying off like 500 people alone. Yeah, just in general, the job market right now is tough with all these layoffs that are happening and continue to happen. So it is part of a really worrying trend on like who's going to be left.
Yeah. I mean, it does beg the question of like where's the direction of Google going at this point? Like they're getting rid of all these people. Are they? I mean, it doesn't seem like they're like stagnant in terms of growth. I feel like there's still a lot of like, I guess you could say like meat on the bone in terms of like growth potential because now they're getting more into AI and stuff like that. So there's a big market for them to expand into in terms of like AI and stuff. So I mean, in terms of like money flow, I think that there's still going to be a lot because I mean they're still developing or perfecting the Pixel line. So it's like each time they get a little bit more market share in terms of hardware.
Yeah, and the thing is that I agree with you. It's like they're really focusing on AI, and maybe they're putting their resources in that rather than other teams. There's a lot that could be happening with this. Like, I think that the biggest expense to these companies is the employees. And the thing is, if you need to trim down the team, it's like you're probably going to be trimming down in a segment that's probably not as profitable or not going to be as profitable in the near term. And then you're going to try to reach like higher revenues with the team that you currently have, and then probably hire more again. It's hard. It's hard, and it's these employees themselves. I know we've mentioned it multiple times here. We have covered layoffs before. It's not the fault of the employees. It's the fault of the company for not like properly
Planning.
not properly planning this, because I do think that they had probably grown a little too fast and thought that this segment would grow more, but it's not the case. I do have a little bit more to say, but I do want to say that if you like interesting content like this, consider subscribing. We put out videos daily. We have a library of over 200 videos, closing in on 300. And, subscribing's free. It doesn't cost anything, and it does really help out the channel. So consider subscribing. It only takes a second. The thing is that they also said to best position themselves for opportunities throughout the second half of 2023. A number of our teams made changes to become more efficient and work better to align their resources to their biggest product priorities. Some teams continue to make these kind of organizational changes, including role elimination globally. So they were already planning this since 2023. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, that is interesting because I do feel like Google and other companies are trying to like do more with less, but also I do think that in terms of where we think this money comes from, like who pays the most, in like, oh, if you like ask 100 people on the streets, like what type of companies pay the most to their employees, and it's like I feel like a majority of these people would say tech companies pay the most. You know, like they're shelling out tons of money for these people, and I mean, maybe that's just like kind of biting them in the butt now, where like they've been paying such great salaries before, and then now they're like, oh, maybe we should cut down. And but you can't, you know, reduce people's salaries. Like they're kind of used to a certain level of pay, so you like at that point either you tell them like, oh, we're gonna reduce your salaries, or you let them go. So I don't know, like it could be that they're just paying more than the market, like by a lot, and they're like kind of, you know, holding the bag on that one.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I've seen a lot of forums of this, by the way, that have mentioned it's like, are the heydays of tech high salaries over? It's a mixed bag between what people say. Some people say it's like the offers that they're getting now are less than what they were getting 2 years ago, 3 years ago, during the height of 2020, 2021. So yeah, it's a lot that's happening there, because at this point in time, interest rates are also high, where it's harder to borrow money, and it's also, but they have a ton of money. So I think the thing is, like, there's probably seeing everyone around, all the companies around, and saying it's like, hey, they're paying these people less. It's like, maybe we could do the same. It's like they could be a little bit more choosy because of the amount of layoffs that have happened. So they're able to go through and carefully choose who they want to have and to keep. And they'll still get this big pool of talent.
Yeah, I guess it goes further into like the realm of conspiracy where, you know, maybe they're trying to restructure their workforce, but in terms of like the pay structure and their, you know, their compensation packages, to where like if the entire market is down because everybody's laying people off, the average person who is getting a job would rather, you know, like they're not going to be like super choosy. I mean, maybe they will be, but I mean, on average, like if you had a choice of like to have work or not have work, I feel like at some point you would just settle for less pay, but income.
Yeah.
So it could also be that like the salaries kind of got out of hand, and then now they're trying to rein it back in, and that's another way to get people back. Is like, they might not be that they're stopping hiring. It might just be that, you know, they're not getting paid as much. They're hiring back people, but for less money.
Yeah, and the thing is, what is it? An Alphabet Workers Union on X, by the way, commented on some of this, saying that these were needless layoffs and the company can't continue to fire workers while making billions of dollars.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not a good look.
I mean, it is not, because I mean they're obviously profitable. I mean, they're making so much in terms of like AdSense, but I mean, they've also been hit with a bunch of lawsuits and settlements and stuff.
Yeah. They have to employ a ton of people, like lawyers and all these other people also, to combat all of these things. Been, you know, some of these things like lawsuits really do hinder some of these projects. The very last thing, though, I do want to say is that Google will now have one core hardware engineering team instead of separate teams working on Pixel, Fitbit, and Nest. So they're consolidating all of that into one team, which is, it's rough because now you're going to have like delayed timelines. You're going to have delayed things because you had separate teams and now you have one team.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think the architecture and stuff, they'd have to have the people who are still left learn a lot more of different things versus being able to like specify into a certain niche of like, oh, you only work on Pixel stuff or you only work on Fitbit stuff.
Yeah. And I would want to know from our audience what they think about this. Do you think that these were needless and senseless layoffs? Do you think that they're trying to pay people less? I would want to know your guys' thoughts in the comments down below.